I just got a new Macintosh M1 based computer, so let me show you in a quick video how I set this computer up for machine learning and how I take advantage of the Apple M1 chip and machine learning engine for deep learning and other types of AI. The first program I always install on a new machine is Chrome. So I will launch Safari one time just to install Chrome. At least Safari installs Chrome with dignity and does not whine about it like Microsoft Edge. Now notice this prompt. If you have a later M1 Mac, make sure to install the Apple chip rather than Intel. You can always use Rosetta emulation layer to run the older Intel software. However, it will be more efficient if you use the Apple chip. Generally, I like to use free software, but I do make an exception in Adobe's case. I will use this computer for video production as well as machine learning. I make use of Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and Audition from the Adobe suite. I also get an Adobe discount being college faculty. And speaking of being faculty, I also get a free install of Microsoft Office 365, which I take advantage of. LibreOffice is great, and I've used it in the past. However, Office 365 is essentially free for me. Now, I do like the LibreOffice variant of Excel because it doesn't distort CSV files nearly as badly as Microsoft, which will strip leading zeros and generally do dumb things to the input. And of course, Zoom to teach the parts of my course that are handled remotely. And of course, LaTeX. I use this in Jupyter Notebooks to create equations, but I use the full-blown LaTeX to create my textbook for the course, as well as a couple of other papers and things that I have published. Blender, it's great for 3D rendering, and I'm using it more and more for machine learning type visualizations. You can command Blender through Python, so I usually don't use this fancy GUI that Blender has. I'm usually running it through Python, setting up vertices, and just creating the meshes directly. You'll probably see some videos from me showing how to use Blender for visualizations. So let's talk about how I actually run Python on this. First of all, you'll want to install something called Homebrew. Homebrew lets you have a package manager on a Mac so you can install various Unix-like utilities with the normal package manager that you might get from Yum or apt-get on other Unix platforms. It's pretty easy to install. You just copy this line right here using the copy and run that from a terminal window, and that will install Homebrew. And you run that with brew, just the brew command line. Brew, install, whatever you're going to install. In this case, we're going to install two different Python environments that I like to make use of on the Macintosh. So if you go to Miniconda, now, Miniconda is what I have used for years on all platforms, Windows, Linux, and Mac, and it just gives you good binary implementations of many of the packages that you would want to install. Now, I do install things more directly on top of it, like TensorFlow, because they typically do not have the latest versions of TensorFlow in Miniconda. Now, in addition to Miniconda, you're going to install a second entire Python implementation, and that's called Miniforge. Miniforge is more tuned directly to the Mac, and you could get by with just one. And if you're going to have just one, then have just Miniforge. But I find that I need both of them. Miniforge is based on Conda, so all the same Conda commands are going to work like you're used to. But why is there Miniforge and both Miniconda? Because it's the open source world. If you want to do something different, you branch everything and create a parallel effort. So this last line specifies really what the folks at Miniforge are attempting to accomplish. An emphasis support on various CPU, not GPU, CPU architectures, most notably being the Apple M1. This is how you get access to Python that will run TensorFlow in GPU-like acceleration using the system on a chip, the neural engine, that the Apple M1 has. Now, at this point, I've said TensorFlow, and I know some of you are like, but we like PyTorch. So I like PyTorch too. Unfortunately, PyTorch doesn't seem to like Apple M1 a lot right now. There's not a lot of support at this point for it. Hopefully, that will be coming more in the future, and it's certainly something that I'm watching and will have more videos on as I see better support. Now, switching between these two is relatively easy. If you go just to a Apple prompt terminal, you'll see the characteristic base. That means I'm in the base environment. If you do which Python, you can find out which one you're currently in. And I am in Miniforge because it installs it directly under Miniforge. If you look and you list my home directory, you'll see Miniforge. And that's your typical Python environment with all the environments that you might set up underneath it. If you want to see where Miniconda is stored at, it's under opt generally. Actually, not under system opt, under my opt. So under my user directory, there's Miniconda 3. Both of these work the same way. They're conda based. So if we go and we look at, there it is, Z shell. So you are in the Z shell on these later Macs. They used to use bash, but it's Z shell now. And if I just cat and look at this file, you'll see that basically they're running this command here that is setting it up for Miniforge 3. If you ran this corresponding command for Miniconda, which would be in the opt directory, I can switch right over to the other one, and I'll have if I do which Python, I'll have that show me which of the two that I'm in. So that's how I keep both of these up and running. There's enough here that I could do an entire video just on how I set up the Python shell inside of an Apple M1, and I will be doing a video about that very soon. I'll link that in the description as soon as it's available, because that will probably be just in a few weeks. I want to get that done before I start the fall semester so I can give students information on how to run this on the Mac and get GPU acceleration if they want to. Now, I use the usual Jupyter notebooks and Jupyter Lab, but the main IDE that I'm working with as a developer on the Macintosh is VS Code. I actually like a Microsoft product for once. Microsoft Code and Microsoft Teams really are the two major projects from Microsoft that I really like and use in my day-to-day work. If Windows ever goes the direction that they did with Chrome, where they just swap out the guts of Windows with a Linux core, then Windows may rise considerably on my list of tools that I use as well. I've heard rumors, one can only hope. Thank you for watching this video, and if you'd like to see other videos by me about artificial intelligence, neural networks, other sorts of things like that, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.